Well, hello again, this is the Zoosh Custom Shop here. Well, being a bit of an action film aficionado, and after watching this particular one with Steven Segal again recently, Marked for Death, I quite liked the pistol that he uses in it, namely this one. And having spotted on the internet that this one recently came up for auction, I hasten to add it's designed to fire blanks, by the way. This real steel one is. It's not to fire real bullets, for the film that was. But yeah, I noticed it came up for auction and quite liked the look of it, and it sort of whetted my appetite a bit for a new and totally different project. Now, this particular gun that was used in the film by Segal had a single ported compensator on the front. Now, the original pistol was made, I believe, or based on the Springfield Armory Omega class of 1911 pistol, which is a totally different slide. It had twin external extractors, which is unusual, but that's because it was what they term as a multi-caliber pistol. In other words, you could just swap the internals out, i.e. the barrel, chamber, whatever, and it would fire 45s, 357 Magnums, I think it was Super 38s or 38 Supers, whatever. So you had a choice of what you could fire through the pistol. Now, that being said, a custom shop in Germany called Peter Stahl, they built this particular pistol for Steven Segal to use in the film. Now, they customised it, done a few odds and sods to it. I believe they put the square trigger guard on, and the slide lock and thumb safety, plus the hammer and a few other bits and bobs, and of course the compensator is what they added to it. Now, as I say, I liked it. It was unusual. I'm not usually one for what shall I say, sort of race pistols. I don't really go much for them. I prefer the plain Jane types with just a few added bits to it, but I quite like this one, so I thought I've got to make one. Now, I couldn't make an identical replica purely because I didn't have the parts available at the time, and I wasn't going to spend out money on something which I didn't know was going to work at the end of it. So I decided I would make it on a high capper frame, and there you have it. Now, what I've done to this pistol to make it look identical to this one is, obviously, I've used for the furniture a 4.3 thumb safety, which is as near as I can get to I think it's a Series 70 single thumb safety that they used on the original, and I've polished it up. The grip safety, again as near as I can get to the real steel, is the grip safety from the TM 4.3 stainless, so I've used that one. The the mag catch is a standard 4.3 mag catch, which again I've polished because it was out of my spares box. The grip screws are actually WE 1911 grip screws, which I've cut the threads down so that they'll fit, and they're slot heads instead of the Allen key ones, which are the standard ones. Oh, by the way, this is based on a high capper, so as you can see, so it's a large capacity pistol, which sort of gave that impression with these large mag bumpers on the end and the squared trigger guard. It was the only way I could really do it on a budget. So I mean, the original one for the film was a single stack pistol, but I made it on the high capper for ease. Okay, coming back to the furniture, the slide lock lever is a 9-ball extended slide lock lever, which is as near as I can get to what the Peter Stahl customizers have fitted to theirs. I believe that's a Wilson Combat one, but it doesn't quite look right, so it might be their own design, I'm not sure on that. The trigger is a 3-hole Garda trigger. Good little triggers, as I've said before, they work exceptionally well. Okay, the frame itself, no change. It's identical to a standard high capper frame, the 5.1 frame. No difference there at all, other than the grip screws, I say, in the furniture. And that's it really for the frame. Now, when we come to the slide, well, as you can see, it's a standard high capper 5.1 slide, i.e. Bomar sight. Everything else is the same. I haven't bothered filling in the markings on there. I've left them as they are. As I say, this was just purely an experiment to see if it could be done on a budget. So I didn't want to waste any parts if it didn't work out in the end. Anyway. Okay, so moving on. The other thing I have added, by the way, is because I didn't have a Commander ring trigger, sorry, not trigger, hammer, available in my spares box, a silver one, I used the standard 4.3 hammer and I polished it up. So as you can see, it's just polished 4.3 one, exactly the same. Okay, so that's it for the actual slide. The only other thing I did to it was I slightly cut back this side of the ejection port. As you can see, normally it would be across here. I've cut it back because the original one on the Peter style pistol has been cut out a bit more. I'm not sure if I've got a better picture of it. No, I haven't. But it's actually cut out more on that side. I don't know why. For some, well, I do know why actually. It's because they used a square chambered back end to the barrel, which I can't do because I haven't got a square chambered one. So I've just used a standard MEU outer barrel, which I've painted silver. Now then, what I've done is, because it's got a compensator on the front, which I'll come to in a minute, all I've done is I've taken a standard 5.1 outer barrel and joined it to the back end of an MEU barrel. And obviously my spares box only had a black one, so I've painted it silver, but that's what I've done. So it's exactly the same sort of principle that I did on the AMT hardballer, which is I literally just slotted one inside the other. So you can't really see it at the moment, but it's in there. So yeah, I just super glued it and glued it in place. Didn't actually need any filler in the end. It filled okay as it was. So that's the outer barrel. The inner barrel is a I believe it's a PDI barrel. I don't normally use them, but I had one in my spares box, so I thought I'd use it, that a friend gave to me. So I've since used it, as you can see. So it's not the standard brass inner barrel, it's a PDI tight bore. I think it's a 6.03, I don't think it's a 6.1 or anything like that. Okay, the other thing I did to the slide, as you can see, is put a blanking piece in for where the front sight would go, because on the real steel pistol, the front sight is actually on the compensator itself. I don't think you can really see it that well there, but you might just be able to make it out. So I've done the same. It's quite a bland looking sort of front sight, nothing special, just literally an upright metal sight, foresight, and that's it. So I did the same to mine. It's an upright piece of plastic. It's quite a thin piece of plastic, but all it was tapped and dyed into there. Well, not tapped and dyed, but pinned in with super glue. And this actual front compensator piece is actually front section off of an old slide which I had knocking about, which I'd damaged the rear on where the sight used to be. I damaged it, so it wasn't of any use. So I cut the front section off, shaped it so it's exactly the same as the one on the real gun, i.e. it's sloped at the front. And I don't know if you can see, but I drilled and tapped and put grub screws into an extended, and this is a homemade extended guide rod, which I managed to get from a chap that I know who had some steel rod handy. So I asked him for some and he gave me some, and that's how I made them up. I've got about 2 or 3 of them, I think, that I've made up of varying different lengths. The other end of the guide rod I've put a washer on the end, so it looks identical in diameter and everything to a standard guide rod that you usually see on pistols. But as I say, this one was homemade because it had to be for the correct length. So yes, as I say, that was drilled and tapped with Allen key grub screws straight into the guide rod. So the only thing that's holding that compensator on is that guide rod and the 2 screws, the 2 grub screws. That's it. As you can see, there was a slight hiccup where I tried to drill 3 of them in there to give it a bit more stability, but that was before I realised that should have been sloped. So there's a slight bit of a cock up there, but as I say, it was just from the spares box and it was just to see whether it would work or not. Now the outer barrel obviously being longer, it copes with the fact that when the barrel drops and goes back slightly, if you put a standard 5.1 barrel in, it will just drop out the end of the compensator and the compensator will twist around. So that's no good, because the only thing, as I say, that's holding that on is those two grub screws. So it's not very stable, it's just loose on the end, which is the same for all compensators. So even if you buy a metal one, it's going to be exactly the same. So there you go. So as I say, it's made from a front of a standard 5.1 slide, cut down, shaped and everything else. The guide rod plug that's in there is actually a 4.3 one that's been cut down to fit, so that this guide rod will fit inside it. I've had to sleeve it with a piece of copper tubing just to take up the loose gap that you can see in there. I think you can just see the copper is beginning to flake off the black paint. So yeah, so I've had to use that in order to make that nice and tight in there. And as I say, it seems to work okay. Well, I know it works because I've since used this in game. In fact, it was used yesterday in game, and it works really, really well. Exceptionally accurate, although I put that down to the, yeah, I didn't show you that as well, but I think you can just about, no maybe not, but there's a 9-ball hot rubber in there, the purple one. As I say, I swear by them, they're very, very good. So yes, it's got a 9-ball hot rubber in, and with the PDI tight bore barrel, really, really accurate. With the additional extra inch of length in barrel, this thing, as I say, is exactly the same as my AMT hardballer. For accuracy, just that extra inch, and putting the 9-ball hot rubber in and a tight bore barrel in a barrel really does help for accuracy. I mean, it really, really does. I've noticed a hell of a difference. So from a standard 5.1 pistol to this, it's made all the difference. It really has. So if you want an accurate pistol, go for a longer barrel. Even if you don't put a compensator on the front, even if you just had a silencer on there, a fake silencer or something like that, having that longer barrel length, yes, it really does stabilise the shots. So it really does work. Anyway, yes, coming back to the pistol. So there you go. So the compensator I made up myself and fitted. It works very, very well. Doesn't jam. It's quite, I mean, it's a little bit loose, but it's not too bad. The other thing that was worrying me, coming back to the foresight, was it being loose like that. I thought it's not going to be accurate, it's always going to be twisting to one side or the other. But funnily enough, I don't know if this will show it actually, but I push the, see, it doesn't move hardly at all. You've got quite a good sight picture there with the Bowmar, so it works quite well. And let's face it, 9 times out of 10 you're never having enough time in a skirmish to aim your sights exactly where you want them to at a running target. So as long as you get that foresight and the front of your gun pointing in the rough direction of where you want it to aim, then you're bound to hit that person within reason. Well, coming back to accuracy of this extra long barrel, it really does help. I mean, aiming in the rough direction, pull the trigger, and I was practically guaranteed a hit. So this has really excelled itself in its first game. It really has. And as a, well, let's face it, a Bitzer pistol, it worked exceptionally well. Yeah, I can't say it didn't. It worked brilliantly. As I say, it was just purely out the spares box, nothing major. I just built it on a whim, really. And as I say, it's really excelled itself in use. So this is definitely a keeper. Whether I fill the markings in or not, I don't know. I may leave it just as it is for now. As I say, it's the original pistol did have, I think it was Peter Stahl written on the side, and the calibre of the pistol and so forth. But other than that, it was just a plain slide. So I'm not too worried. The other things that are different, which obviously I can't do, well I could, but they'd be looking fake, is the external extractor and the different cock inserations on the rear of the slide. The ones on the original are quite wide apart. They look very much like the STI type cock inserations, whereas the one on the high capper look more like a standard Colt, slightly forward slanting ones, where you know what they look like anyway, you've seen them before. So yeah, so I could do that, and with the, as I say, the external extractors, which there's one on either side of the slide, because it had dual extractors, as I explained before, the only way I could do that, I suppose, is to use my Dremel, grind out a small groove in the side of the slide either side, and glue in a piece of either, I don't know, tin or aluminium or something like that, just to make it look like that there's an external extractor there, which I could do, but I don't really want to. It's not worth it. It was only, as I say, just done on a whim to look like the gun. So there you go. So as I say, it was a good little project. I thoroughly enjoyed making it. As I say, I'm not into race guns usually, but this one caught my eye considering the film that it was used in. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a go. Gave it a go. It works brilliantly, and yeah, I love it. And I've only used it in game once. But yeah, it works exceptionally well. It's got rather an unusual sort of sound to her. She don't fire with the usual thwack that you get with coming from the slide that you get on a normal high capper. In fact, it sounds a bit sort of rattly, really. I presume that's down to the compensator and the extended guide rod. But other than that, she works fine. As I say, she's accurate. She's meagre on gas. I was using either 4.3 or standard high capper mags with no upgrades, nothing like that, and she was working fine. I should imagine I was getting about 295 to 300 feet per second out of her yesterday, because it was exceptionally hot weather. I think it was around about 23, 24 degrees, something like that, we was experiencing at the site that I play at. So yeah, so she's done very, very well actually. And that was on standard Abbey Ultra gas, not on green gas that I normally use. I think if I'd used green gas yesterday, it might have blown the pistol apart. I doubt it, but it may have because of the excessively high temperature. So yeah, so I stuck with the Ultra gas, Abbey Ultra gas, and as I say, she worked lovely. So there you go. So another little project under my belt. As I say, I may make other compensators in the future. This was done as an experiment for a possible upcoming gun, and it will be in the future. I've actually drawn up a list of what I need. As you can see, what the gun is going to be. It's going to be the Punisher 1911. Whether I actually make this or not, I don't know. It's coming up with funds at the moment, which as we all know, are never easy to come by. So as soon as I get my funds together, then I'll most probably make the Punisher as one of my next projects. So as I say, the compensator design that was done for this was purely done as an experiment to see if it would work. It does. It works very, very well indeed, and as I say, I enjoyed making it. So there you go. So that's another project under my belt for Lazouche Custom Shop, and well, good luck if you try it yourself. It's a good little project. As I say, you'll have to make up your own guide rod, because you can't actually buy those off the shelf. Well, you can, I suppose. You can get 6-inch ones, I think, out there, but they all cost money. So as I say, it's up to you whether you've got the funds available. Okay, this is Lazouche Custom Shop, signing off.